Yeah, of course. Revelations, are you filming?
So there was no slavery before Islam.
How come Easter changes each year? One year it can be the beginning of April, next year it can be the end of April.
Yeah. So the answer is the Easter date is connected to the Jewish calendar, and the Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar, and so because in a lunar calendar dates move, that's why Easter moves with the new moon. So at the Council of Nicaea, there was a formula given about how to fix the Easter date. And that formula is why it moves, because it's linked to the new moon. So that's the reason.
It just seems a bit odd, because obviously
it's only odd if you're not aware of the historical Jewish nature of the Christian faith.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. I don't believe in any religion, just a waste of time.
Yeah.
But we always have the 25th of December is when Jesus was born.
Yeah.
But so, and that date's fixed, the same as anyone else's date of birth.
Yeah.
And everyone else's date of death is fixed as well. You can only die on one day, so it can't really change.
The Easter,
each year.
the Easter date is fixed to the lunar moon.
Well, why isn't it fixed to a date?
Why isn't it fixed to the solar calendar?
Or whatever, the calendar as we know.
The reason why the birth date is fixed at Christmas is because of a festival that celebrates the incarnation of Christ in Mary, and when that date is celebrated, 9 months from that date is the 25th of December. So because this festival that celebrates Christ's incarnation is fixed, that's why the birth date is fixed. The reason why the Easter date is fixed in the way that it is to the lunar moon is, as I've said, because of the Jewish origins of the Christian faith. The Christian calendar that I follow, that influences your life, is there to give us guidance about how we're meant to form our lives as Christians. It's not meant to be a historical record. We don't treat it like a historical record. We treat it as a symbolic calendar that allows us to mark the key events that are connected to Christ's life. And so you've got to understand it as a symbolic calendar rather than a sort of like an accurate historical calendar of events. And that's how we use it.
I mean, I'm not... You obviously know your stuff quite well. I obviously don't. But it still just seems strange that he was born on that day, and that day is his birthday every single year.
Yeah.
But he died at a different time. I can't work.
Yeah, because the festival of Christmas was, as I say, fixed to a different festival. So because the festival of Christ's incarnation is 9 months exactly to the 25th of December. That's why you have the 25th of December picked as the date. Whereas the Easter date, when before the Council of Nicaea, Christians were celebrating Easter at different times. It was a debate amongst early Christians. Okay, when should we celebrate Easter? And different Christians had different answers to the question. But because our calendar is a symbolic calendar, we don't use it like a historical retelling. We use it as a way of capturing the important events of Christ's life. And that's why.
It just seems weird how someone's death can change. Change date.
Again, but you're not taking on board what I've said.
No, I know. I can't sort of.
So do you know what symbolism is? Do you know what symbolism is?
No, not really.
Right. So let's use an example. Symbolism is when you do something to demonstrate the significance of something else. So say you buy a present for your child, right? Now, say you missed their birthday for whatever reason, and you bought them a birthday present after their birthday, and you gave it to them and you said, this is for your birthday. Do you know what I'm saying? The symbolicness of the event has no correlation to the historical reality. You're giving the birthday gift late, but it still counts as a birthday gift. So the celebration of Easter is a symbolic event.
Right.
It's not a claim.
So why don't they have it when he actually died then?
Well, the thing is, because of the nature of the lunar calendar, dates shift throughout the year. And the celebration of Easter is connected to Passover. Passover is a festival that moves in the year, and so Easter has to move with it because Christ was crucified around Passover.
Right. Okay.
And that's the reason, you know.
Okay, I sort of got a little bit of grasp of that. Some things is... Yeah,
It's symbolic. Like, imagine if you picked some flowers to give to your wife.
Why don't they just have it as why don't they just say, when they're trying to work out
Yeah.
between them then,
Yeah.
when are we going to have this Easter thing? Well, what is it? Well, it's when he was
Crucified and resurrected. Yeah.
Well, what date did that happen? Well, it happened in March of 28, didn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, well, that's it then.
Well, you know the King's birthday, right? So look at it. Look at it this way. Look at it this way, right? In terms of when did the King become king?
Well, the other year, last year, didn't
Yeah, he did. When's his coronation?
This year.
What is the coronation?
No, it's just like just recognising that he's...
There you go. You've just said it. You've just got it. Right? If you can get it for the King's coronation, you can get it for Easter. Easter is recognising that Christ rose from the dead. In the same way that the King's coronation is a recognition that he has become king. Like he's crowned on coronation day. No one's put a crown on his head yet. He gets anointed on coronation day. No one's put a crown on him. No one's anointed him yet. He became king last year on the day that his mother died.
The day after, wasn't it?
No, it was the day that his mother died, yeah. He became king immediately. The moment his mother passed away, he became king. But he's coronated king in a couple of weeks' time. And so it is with Christ's resurrection. The festival of the resurrection is acknowledging the fact of the resurrection. It isn't stating that on this day he was resurrected.
Yeah.
The thing is, as Christians, the thing is, as Christians, we celebrate every Sunday as the day of resurrection. Did you know that? No. See, this is our traditions and our customs that modern English people have all lost. This is your inheritance. This is part of the traditions of your grandparents and your great-grandparents, and you've lost it all. And you've lost it all because as a culture, we decided to take our history and chuck it in the bin. And when we chucked it in the bin, we lost that root that connected us to the thing that made us who we are. We've lost our identity. You've lost your identity. And the thing is, you don't have to stay ignorant of your identity. You don't have to stay ignorant of who your great-grandfathers were and what made them great, what inspired them to greatness.
I mean, yeah.
Can I ask you a question? I'll let you speak and then I'll ask a
Are
question.
you going to ask a question, why are you so stupid?
No, that was not going to be my question. Why would I ask such a question?
Because I think I'm probably making myself look that way. By
No.
asking
This
you
is
the dumb questions.
no. Firstly, there's no such thing as a dumb question. The only thing that matters is the sincerity of the question. So if your questions are sincere, that's all that matters, right? So, you know, it's about whether it's sincere or insincere. There's no such thing as stupid questions. But my point to you is that we have been lied to by the state in state education, from primary school, from nursery school, from high school, from college, from university. Your heritage has been robbed from you. Your history has been robbed from you. The English people have no sense of themselves anymore, because to be English is to be Christian. And when I say English, I'm not talking about the legal state sense. I'm talking about the ethnicity, like the fact that you are an Anglo-Saxon. You have an identity as an Englishman that the state has robbed from you. And the reason why it's robbed from you is because if you were to connect with your Christian roots, you would recognize that there's something more important than the state. You would recognize that there's something more important than the United Kingdom. You would realize that as Christians, we don't believe that the individual is the foundation rock of society, but the family. We don't recognize the Parliament as the highest authority, but God's revelation. We recognize that God's law is what is binding on us, even if it contradicts the state law, and that if keeping God's law means breaking the laws of the state, then we become criminals, and we celebrate the fact that we are criminals. We embody a motif of martyrdom for our faith, giving ourselves to the kingdom of God, not the kingdom of the United Kingdom. That means that we have a basis upon which to oppose Sharia law, a basis upon which to oppose the transgender ideology and the LGBTQ silent P ideology that's sending the world mad and driving us over a cliff. These are the things that if you were a Christian, you would be connected to, and that is exactly why the state has made you ignorant of these things. And I'm inviting you to reconnect with all of those things. And the first step on that journey begins with answering this question. Who do you think, who is Jesus Christ to you? Not to me, not to someone else, but to you personally. What's your name, brother?
Ricky.
Ricky. Who is Jesus Christ to you, Ricky?
Just a fictional character that's been made up.
Right, okay. You think he's a fictional character made up?
Yeah, no, I think there might have been someone. There might have been someone back in them times who, I don't know, for one reason or another, captured the imagination of a lot of people, and a lot of stories have blown up around certain things, what he done and whatever. But overall, it's just a load of old pony. You can't. From the very start, it's flawed, because straight away I think, well, hold on, who is his mum? Well, it was Mary. Right, well, who's his dad? Well, Mary was a virgin. Oh, right. Okay. You know,
So let me.
I just don't believe in religion.
Let me respond to that. Firstly, in terms of how we do history, the evidence for Christ's reality as a human person in history is insurmountable. It's insurmountable. He's not just testified to in independent biblical sources like Paul, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, but he's also testified to in terms of non-Christian, Roman, and Jewish sources like Josephus, like Suetonius, like I can't think of a third one. Like also Clement of Rome, for instance, who's a Christian writing outside of the New Testament. All of these sources are first century, and they all speak about Christ as a human person in history, and the vast majority of them speak about Christ's crucifixion. Now, if Christ was crucified, immediately that disproves Islam. Immediately that disproves any religion that denies the crucifixion. But the reason why Christianity was started as a religion in the first place was that people who knew Christ had lived and died went on to proclaim that he had risen from the dead. And the thing is, what would convince you that a man who had died had come back to life?
I don't know, I suppose witnessing it for myself.
There you go.
You know, that's the only thing what can, isn't it? You know?
Exactly.
But the point is, back in there, as I said, there very well may have been someone who sparked off people's imagination with this and that.
Yeah.
And he very well might have ended up getting crucified.
Yeah.
Because in them days, people did stupid things and made stupid decisions. You've only got to look at the fact that there was witch finders who went up and down the country, and if they wanted to earn a few extra quid, they said, she's a witch.
But that was centuries later.
You know, they were like,
What the example that you've given of witch burnings was something that happened in the 12th and 13th and 14th centuries, and it only happened in a small pocket of Europe. It didn't happen across Europe. It didn't happen in the Eastern Orthodox Church, and it's actually got no relevance at all to what happened in the 1st century.
Well, what I'm saying is people
believe silly things.
Well, believe silly things, and also they're capable of doing quite horrible things as well. So the fact that he was crucified is neither here nor there, because there might have been someone, and he very well might have been crucified.
Well, the point is that the accuracy of the crucifixion is needed, because without a crucifixion you have no resurrection. You know, there's no resurrection if nobody died, so somebody had to die. That's why you've got to talk about the crucifixion. And again, the evidence for the crucifixion is insurmountable. Like, it's just overwhelming. Because as I say, it's not just Christian sources that write about Christ's crucifixion, it's also non-Christian sources, like Josephus, like Suetonius, and so on. My point to you is this, that if the first Christians, I mean the very first, not the ones that came next because the apostles had told them, but the actual apostles themselves, they themselves had no paradigm in which to believe that a single person would rise from the dead. They didn't have it. Do you understand what I mean by a paradigm?
No.
Right, so let me give you an example. So imagine you're in a field in the countryside and you see a bright lit saucer kind of shape floating across a field, and then all of a sudden it zooms straight up at high speed and disappears into the night sky. What's the first thought that comes into your mind about what that was?
First thing is you think, well, what the that?
Well, yeah, and the next thought? Like, well, how do you answer that question? Where does your mind go to answer that question? There's no trick question here, it's just an honest... A saucer. A flying saucer.
Yeah, well, you just think, well, it must be something from outer space.
There you go. Right, that's called a paradigmatic model. In other words, we have a place in our culture by which we understand illuminous saucer-shaped objects that fly defying gravity, and we stick them in the category of UFO. That there was no box in 1st century Judaism for the idea of an individual rising from the dead. And yet, despite the absence of that paradigmatic matrix, the very first apostles went on to preach that a single person, their teacher, who they had seen crucified, had risen from the dead. And the question that you and every other person has to answer for themselves is why? Now, for me, the answer to that question is because, just like you, when you said the thing that would convince me is that I would have to see it with my own eyes, well, these first apostles saw it with their own eyes. Now, what's interesting is in 1st century Judaism, there was a paradigmatic model of what you do when your teacher dies. You venerate his tomb. You go to his tomb, you turn it into like a shrine, and you pray there, and you go and you visit his tomb and you honor him. So if he had just died and stayed dead, the most Jewish thing to do would have been to go to his tomb and venerate his tomb like other people did to other teachers, like they did to the prophets. And Jesus was seen as a prophet, you know, but they didn't do that with Jesus's tomb. And the reason why is because the tomb was empty. How does a dead body leave a tomb?
Someone must have took it.
Someone must have took it. Who? And why? Right, so let's do, I'm going to be honest, like, let's look at your suggestion and let's treat it intelligently, right? Because I want to be fair to you. And all I ask in reciprocation for this is not that you come to a conclusion, is that you honestly consider the possibility that it was because a man rose actually from the dead. So let us assume that some grave robbers stole the body, right? We have two options. We either say it was someone other than the apostles that stole the body, or we say it was the apostles themselves that stole the body. Okay? Now, the first thing about that is that we're admitting that the tomb was indeed empty, right? We're admitting that. And actually, the Jews, in their opposition to the Christian Jewish movement, did spread exactly that rumour. They said that the apostles stole the body, which means that they were acknowledging the tomb was empty. But if the apostles stole the body, I'm sure you know that liars make poor martyrs. Would you die for something you knew you had made up? If I stuck a, like, let's say you spread a lie, and this lie got you rich, and I stuck a gun to your head, and I said, you either stop saying this or I'm going to blow your head out right now. Which would you rather do? Continue the lie and me blow your brains out, or say, okay, I made it all up, and go off? Which would you do?
I'd rather admit to it.
Exactly. Do you think people 2,000 years ago were any different when confronted with death? But yet we know that many early Christians, like Stephen, like James, like Peter, like Paul, were martyred for their faith that Christ had risen from the dead. So martyrs, liars, make poor martyrs. So we know this from that. We know that they genuinely believed what they believed. Now, let us look at the other example, the idea that some rogues, some vagabonds, we don't even know their names, stole the body. If they stole the body, we still have to answer the question, why did Mary, why did Paul, why did Peter, why did the other apostles believe that Christ had risen from the dead and go out and preach that? If they saw that their leader had died, but they had no connection to the stealing of the body, then why did they come to believe that Christ had risen from the dead? So either way, we're still confronted with the fact that they genuinely believe that Christ had risen from the dead. And that is an evidence to the fact that that resurrection is true. That it's real. That it was a real experience. Now, you've never heard this argument before, have you?
No.
You've never heard this discussion before, have you?
No, I don't think so.
Right, and the reason for that is because society doesn't want you to believe. Liberal Western society does not want Christians, because Christians get in the way of liberal Western society. We don't go along with the trans agenda. We don't go along with the LGBTQ silent P agenda. We don't go along with Islamization. We don't go along with nationalism. We don't go along with hating people for the colour of their skin or because they're the wrong nationality. So we're an awkward thing for the liberal Enlightenment. And so they want and have successfully disconnected you and everyone else from ever thinking about this topic.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. They're actually, I think the church is actually coming round to accepting a lot of the
nonsense.
The LGBT.
Yeah, and when we say the church, what we really mean is the Church of England.
Yeah.
And even then, when we say the church, we only mean parts of the Church of England. What we don't mean is the full body of Christ. Nearly every Christian, in fact, every Christian I know in this park rejects all of that. And Christians are going to prison for it. Christians are being prosecuted for this belief. Like, where Christians are losing the right to adopt because of this belief. So we're opposing the gods of this world. But everyone in our society is encouraged to bow to the gods of this world. The gods of self, the god of the NHS, the god of the British Army, the god of multiculturalism, the god of unthinking tolerance. These are the gods of our world, and to wit, we Christians say, no, burn them all. Christ has risen. And in Christ is true life.
Yeah.
Go on.
Anyway.
What's your name? Ricky, isn't it?
Ricky, yeah.
Ricky, I want to give you a gift.
Sorry, who are you?
Bob.
Bob, that's right.
Bob of Speaker's Corner. Let me give you a gift, Ricky. It'll be something small. You can stick it down the front of your coat. Have you got a gospel at home? Let me give you one. And what I would like to invite you to do is just have a read of it.
Right.
Have a read of it. And
I might do. When I can't get to sleep properly,
yeah.
I'll open the page and it'll do the job.
Reading does help people sleep, including me.
But
I feel that might have been a slight attempt at a backhanded insult, but no, I'll take it. Yeah. Here you go, bro.
Anyway, it is interesting to see,
Have a read of that.
It is interesting to see, to listen to different people's views on things and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I don't think I'll ever be persuaded that there is a God or blah blah blah. I believe we're just an animal. We've evolved, and that's it. I can't answer all the questions where we evolved from, how we're this or that, but it just seems common sense to me that, you know, we have evolved. We were born because my mum and I was born because my mum and dad wanted me.
Yeah.
I'll die just like everyone else and every other animal on the earth.
As a Christian, I believe in evolution as well. I've got no
people
objection
just need
to evolution.
To accept that. And so many people seem to believe in a religion because they're worried about dying. And I just think, you know, I don't want to die.
Yeah.
I don't stress out over it, but I'm obviously getting on a little bit now. So it does cross your mind now and then. I wonder how it's going to end up or whatever. But
The reality,
at the end of the day, there's nothing I can do about
the reality is that the big Christians organise themselves by different questions. You know, the Western modern world tells us to think about our career, getting a wife, having children, getting money, accumulating experiences, becoming rich. Those are the questions that the Western liberal world invites us to organise our lives around. Christians organise their lives around different questions. We organise the questions around questions of truth and questions of virtue. And it leads to a very different style of life. And the reality is that ultimately, everyone who dies, and we are all going to die. That's, you know, I believe it. That's what the Bible teaches. Everyone is going to die, and the reality is that it's only in the confrontation of death that people ask themselves more serious questions than what liberal society encourages us to ask. And the reality is, if you had based your life around questions more fundamental than the ones offered to us by Western society, you would have lived and can still live a more meaningful and richer life. And that's you know, Christ said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free, so that you might have life and have it to the full." That you know, life is a banquet, and the Western liberal world is starving because all we do is pursue material questions and material answers. But life is more than material questions and material answers. There are deep spiritual, non-corporeal realities that govern our lives, like what is truth, love as the highest virtue, like what is the highest virtue. These are questions that you can't stick in a test tube or a bottle, you can't experiment on them, there's no substance that you can make out of them, and yet they are real questions that have real impacts on life. And Christians engage with that without chucking away science. We're not anti-science. Christians gave birth to science. And so when you read that gospel, think about it in that way, that it's presenting to you different questions than the ones you've currently considered, and giving you questions that you could reorganize your life around.
What an amazing conversation. It started with origin of dates for Easter and Christmas, then spiraled into the historical account of Jesus. Bob did such a great job showing that there are historical accounts outside the Bible that confirm the life of Jesus. That was powerful. Then came the deep dive into the crucifixion. He made it clear that it's not just a belief, but a historical fact. And those two scenarios of the empty tomb, they ultimately lead to one undeniable conclusion. The apostles really saw the risen Jesus. Like Bob said, who would die for a lie? The apostles preached about the risen Christ and died as martyrs. They genuinely believed that Christ had risen from the dead, and that closing from Bob was just fire. He pointed out how the gods of this world want people to stay disconnected. But as Christ said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." Amen. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. Honestly, this is one of my top favorite conversations from Bob. God bless you all. See you on Saturday.